What if the stars were never just stars, but a language ancient and divine? In the language of the sky, astrology and myth, we uncover how civilizations mapped the heavens not just to tell time, but to tell stories. From Babylon to Egypt, from mythic gods to zodiac signs, the sky was a cosmic script, speaking in symbols, shaping destinies, and guiding kings and seekers alike. Join us as we decode the celestial wisdom hidden above us and within us. This isn't just astrology, it's myth, memory, and the soul's connection to the stars. Let the sky speak. Are you ready to listen? Before the written word, before the rise of organized religion, humans looked up. The night sky, vast, mysterious, and rhythmic, became our first storybook. Stars moved in patterns, planets wandered like gods on a cosmic stage, and eclipses struck awe and terror. These heavenly phenomena were not seen as random or meaningless. They were messages, symbols, portents. The sky was not empty, it was speaking. And astrology, entwined with myth, was humanity's earliest attempt to understand that divine language. This is the story of the language of the sky, how astrology and myth fused into a sacred worldview, a cosmic grammar through which people read the will of the gods and the destiny of souls. Far from mere superstition, astrology was once revered as celestial science and spiritual art. It offered both order and meaning in a chaotic world, forming the backbone of temples, calendars, and empires. The birth of celestial symbolism, Babylon and beyond. The roots of astrology reach deep into the soil of ancient Mesopotamia, particularly Babylon, where sky watching became a priestly duty. As early as 2000 BCE, Babylonian scholars charted the movements of planets and stars on clay tablets. These early astronomers were not merely scientists, they were diviners. They believed that celestial events reflected divine will. If Jupiter rose in a certain constellation, it could signify war or abundance. If an eclipse darkened the moon, it warned of a king's fall. From these observations grew what we now call omen-based astrology, a system where the stars were read like sacred text. Every alignment, every planet, every eclipse had meaning. Babylonian mythology deeply influenced this view. Marduk, the chief god, was said to have ordered the cosmos, placing stars in constellations and assigning them roles. The sky became a divine manuscript written by the gods themselves. Egypt, the sacred stars of the Nile. In ancient Egypt, astrology merged with mythology in profound and mystical ways. The Egyptians associated stars with gods, particularly those connected to death and the afterlife. The star Sirius, known as Sopdet, was especially sacred. It heralded the annual flooding of the Nile and was linked to the goddess Isis. This was not coincidence, but cosmic design. Egyptian temples were aligned with celestial events, and tombs were adorned with star maps. Pharaohs were believed to ascend to the heavens and become stars themselves. The zodiac, borrowed later by the Greeks, had precursors in Egyptian symbolism, such as the Dendera zodiac, an elaborate celestial chart etched into temple stone. In Egypt, the sky was not just a place, it was a being. Nut, the sky goddess, arched over the earth, swallowing the sun each evening and birthing it anew each morning. Astrology in Egypt was the practice of reading the body of Nut, interpreting her divine rhythms. Greece and Rome, from myth to mechanics. It was the Greeks who began to formalize astrology into the system many recognize today. Zodiac signs, planetary rulers, houses, and aspects. But they did not create this system from scratch. They inherited Babylonian star lore, fused it with Egyptian cosmology, and added their own philosophical rigor. For the Greeks, myth and astrology were two sides of the same coin. The gods of Olympus were not only characters in stories, They were the planets. Zeus became Jupiter, the king of the sky. Aphrodite became Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Ares, Mars, god of war. Each planet, in its course through the zodiac, expressed the archetypal powers of these divine beings. Plato and Pythagoras believed the heavens operated according to divine mathematics, what Pythagoras called the music of the spheres. Astrology was thus both mythological and metaphysical, the study of how divine principles shaped human lives. The birth chart became a sacred map, a cosmic fingerprint. India, the Vedic vision of the stars. In India, astrology, called Jyotisha or the science of light, was and remains a cornerstone of spiritual life. Unlike the Western zodiac, Vedic astrology is sidereal, aligning directly with the constellations. Yet its mythic foundations are just as rich. The Navagrahas, 9 planets, in Hindu tradition are not just celestial bodies. They are deities with complex personalities, karmic functions, and mythic stories. For example, Shani, Saturn, is the god of discipline, time, and karma, often feared but ultimately fair. Rahu and Ketu, the lunar nodes, are considered shadowy demons responsible for eclipses, based on a myth of cosmic deception and divine retribution. Astrology in India is intimately tied to karma and dharma. One's birth chart is not simply a map of fate, but a mirror of one's past actions and spiritual path. To read the stars is to read the soul's journey across lifetimes. Astrology as mythic mirror. At its core, astrology functions as a mythic mirror. It doesn't just predict, it reflects. The chart of the sky at the moment of your birth is seen as a cosmic snapshot, a symbolic story that reveals your temperament, your trials, your destiny. This story is not fixed, but archetypal. Carl Jung understood this. He saw astrology as a symbolic system that echoed the structure of the psyche. The planets were archetypes. The zodiac signs were masks worn by the self. Astrology and myth, to Jung, were languages of the soul, ways to express inner truths in symbolic form. Just as myths explain universal themes, creation, love, war, betrayal, transformation, so too does astrology. A Mars-Pluto conjunction might echo the myth of Hades abducting Persephone. A Venus-Neptune aspect might mirror the story of Aphrodite and the sea. These aren't mere coincidences, they're symbolic resonances. A silence in the sky. For thousands of years, humanity looked up and listened. The sky was not mute. Its shimmering constellations, wandering planets, and shifting phases were seen not just as physical phenomena, but as divine utterances encoded in light and motion. The stars told stories. The planets revealed patterns. Eclipses were warnings, comets, omens, the rising of Sirius, a sacred sign. But today, for most of us, the sky is silent. We know more about the physical universe than ever before, distances, temperatures, chemical compositions. But we no longer ask what the sky means. We study the stars, but we've forgotten how to read them. And perhaps more importantly, we've forgotten why our ancestors did. This is not an argument for superstition or for abandoning science. It's a call to recover a forgotten dimension of our relationship with the cosmos, the symbolic, the mythic, the sacred. It's an invitation to relearn the ancient language of the sky. Once upon a time, the sky spoke. In the ancient world, there was no divide between astronomy and astrology, science and spirituality. To look at the stars was to engage in sacred dialogue. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the temples of Egypt, from the ziggurats of the Sumerians to the Vedic fire altars of India, priests and sages studied the sky not just to predict seasonal changes, but to discern cosmic truths. The stars were teachers. The planets were gods in motion. The moon's phases were cycles of time and transformation, and every shift in the heavens was believed to echo events on Earth, not as cause and effect in a mechanical sense, but as symbolic synchrony. This was the idea behind the famous Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, as within, so without. To read the sky was to understand the rhythm of life itself. Myth and meaning, the sky as story. Astrology did not arise in a vacuum. It was birthed from myth, from the stories that people told to explain the mysteries of existence. And these stories were not merely entertainment. They were containers of truth. In every culture, celestial mythology emerged alongside cosmology. The Greeks, for instance, populated the sky with their pantheon. Zeus became Jupiter, the king of the heavens. Mars was Ares, the god of war. Venus was Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and desire. These were not arbitrary associations. They were archetypal insights encoded into celestial motion. A conjunction of Mars and Venus was not just astronomy, it was myth in motion. In Egypt, the heliacal rising of Sirius marked the new year and the flooding of the Nile, and was associated with the goddess Isis, the divine mother, mourning and resurrecting her slain husband Osiris. In India, the planets were deities themselves, each with their own mythology, karma, and spiritual function. Astrology was, in every case, mythologized cosmology. The stars were not just lights, they were language. The birth chart, a cosmic fingerprint. One of the most profound expressions of this language was the natal chart, the map of the heavens at the moment of a person's birth. To ancient astrologers, this chart was more than a tool of prediction. It was a symbolic mirror of the soul's purpose, challenges, gifts, and spiritual trajectory. Each planet represented an aspect of the psyche, inner drives, fears, desires, and destinies. Each zodiac sign expressed a particular quality of energy. Each house of the chart revealed an area of life where these forces played out. The birth chart wasn't fate, it was a story. And like all great stories, it offered possibilities, not guarantees. In many traditions, the act of casting and interpreting a natal chart was considered sacred. In India, Jyotisha, the science of light, was one of the 6 limbs of the Vedas, foundational to spiritual practice. In the Hellenistic world, astrologers were philosophers and healers, not mere fortune tellers. The fall, from sacred to superstition. So what happened? How did we lose this language? The decline of astrology's sacred status is a long and complex story, involving religious suppression, intellectual shifts, and cultural forgetting. As monotheistic religions rose, many began to view astrology with suspicion. The idea that stars could influence fate seemed to compete with divine will. Though astrology survived in Christian monasteries and Islamic observatories, it became increasingly marginalized. Then came the Enlightenment. With the rise of rationalism and empirical science, astrology was declared irrational, unprovable, and obsolete. The heavens were now understood as mechanical, not meaningful. The soul was excluded from the cosmos. Myth was downgraded to fantasy. And astrology, once a pillar of spiritual knowledge, was relegated to the back pages of newspapers. We began to look at the sky through a telescope, but we stopped seeing ourselves in it. The cost of forgetting. This loss is not just about astrology. It reflects a deeper rupture, the severing of our connection to symbolic meaning. When we stripped the sky of its story, we also stripped ourselves of our context. We became isolated observers in a cold, indifferent universe. We replaced the sacred with the measurable, the mysterious with the mechanical. And while this shift brought many advances, it also brought disorientation. We gained information, but lost orientation. we began to suffer what philosopher Charles Taylor calls the buffered self, a modern identity sealed off from the cosmos, cut off from transcendent meaning. Depression, anxiety, and spiritual hunger surged. In a universe of facts, we forgot how to ask questions of purpose. Relearning the language of the sky is not about reverting to pre-scientific beliefs. It's about recovering the symbolic imagination, rediscovering that the world is not mute, that the stars still whisper if we know how to listen. Jung, archetypes, and the inner cosmos. One modern thinker who took astrology seriously was Carl Jung. Jung saw astrology not as predictive magic, but as symbolic psychology. The planets and signs, to him, represented archetypes, universal patterns that structure human experience. For Jung, the birth chart revealed the landscape of the psyche. It was not a script but a mirror, a tool for individuation, the process of becoming whole. He viewed astrology and myth as part of the collective unconscious, a shared symbolic language through which humanity has always understood itself. In Jung's hands, astrology was rehabilitated, not as science, but as soul work, reawakening in a new age. In recent years, astrology has seen a resurgence, particularly among younger generations. From TikTok horoscopes to full natal chart readings, the stars are back in style. Critics call this a symptom of irrationality, but perhaps it's a sign of something deeper, a hunger for meaning in a fragmented world. Yet much of this revival is surface level, focused on personality typing and compatibility quizzes. The deeper wisdom of astrology, the mythic language, the spiritual insight, the invitation to self-understanding, is often lost beneath pop culture gloss. Relearning the language means going beyond sun signs. It means returning to the mythic roots, the spiritual dimension. It means treating the birth chart not as a toy, but as a text, an epic written in stars. How to relearn the language. So how do we begin? How do we reconnect with this lost dimension? 1. Read mythically. Return to the myths, not just to learn stories, but to feel their resonance. What does it mean that Venus rules love, or that Saturn brings hardship? These aren't just traits, they're stories. And those stories live in you. 2. Observe the sky. Start watching the moon. Track the planets. Notice when eclipses occur or when Mercury goes retrograde. Not to fear, but to observe. The act of sky watching is ancient and sacred. It reconnects you with cycles beyond your control, but not beyond your awareness. 3. Study with reverence. If you study astrology, do it with humility. This is not a party trick. It's a language of soul. Take your time. Learn the symbols. Feel the archetypes. Let the patterns reveal themselves gradually. 4. Use it for self-reflection, not control. Astrology is not about controlling your fate. It's about understanding your patterns. Use your chart to ask better questions, not to demand easy answers. 5. Remember the mystery. The language of the sky was never meant to be fully decoded. It's not a formula, it's a poem, a sacred riddle. Relearning it means reclaiming wonder, not certainty. The sky still speaks. The stars have not changed. They rise and set as they always have. Orion still hunts across the night. Venus still brightens the dawn. The moon still waxes and wanes. But our eyes have changed. Our ears have dulled. Yet the sky still speaks. To those willing to relearn the language, it offers not prediction, but presence. Not control, but connection. Not superstition, but symbolic wisdom. This is not about abandoning science or truth. It is about recovering the other half of truth, the half that speaks in stories, dreams, and archetypes. The half that remembers we are not just minds and meat machines, but souls in a cosmos of meaning. So look up, not just to calculate, but to contemplate. The sky is not silent. It is singing the song of your becoming. Thank you for joining us on this celestial journey through the language of the sky, astrology, and myth. The stars have always spoken, not in noise, but in meaning, myth, and mystery. What we call astrology today was once sacred science, storytelling, and spiritual guidance. As above, so below, the heavens mirror the soul. If this journey stirred something within you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden wisdom and ancient truths. Keep looking up, not just for answers, but for inspiration. Until next time, may the stars illuminate your path and the myths awaken your spirit.